Yo, what's going on, guys? So today's video is pretty exciting because we're doing our first reaction and breakdown of the new Marvel Rivals announcement trailer by NetEase Games. We are going to do a frame-by-frame breakdown and analysis of characters based on the information that is available right now. I'm super excited to hopefully get my hands on this game for the alpha in May to see what NetEase is cooking up, because I really loved Overwatch's style of gameplay with how smooth the animations were and how fast-paced the game can be when your team is really in sync. But now you throw in one of the most recognizable and beloved IPs into the mix and you've got a potential Game of the Year on your hands if they can handle this game properly and they focus on making the gameplay experience as best as it can be. Towards the end, I'll be showing my wish list about which characters I want to see in the game, so stick around till then. And as always, don't forget to like and share the video. Comment down below what potential characters you want to see in post-launch, and subscribe to stay up to date as more Marvel Rivals news releases. Now let's get into the video. Okay, first reaction. Marvel roll. Alright, excited. Let's see what we got. Asgard. Alright, first lineup right here of characters that we're going to see. Doctor Strange opening a portal to the other set of characters. Looks great so far. Iron Man's flying, Spider-Man swinging. Okay, so there's a lot of mobility, which is going to be great, because getting from like spawn to objectives is so like annoying. I hate when it's really slow. Hulk slamming down Namor. Teaming up with Iron Man, breaking the statue. Absolutely beaming Rocket Raccoon right there. Another portal, that's great. I think that's going to be like so clutch. Spider-Man ulting, freezing all the characters and enemy characters in place. That's great. Luna Snow looks like a healing type character, support type character. Look, she's seeing that on Namor. Loki teleporting, transforming into Black Panther, using his abilities. I wonder how long that's going to last. That's interesting. Magic, slashing, swinging, straight assault type. And then okay, we got Rocket, Groot teaming up, classic. Okay, I love that. I wonder if we're gonna be able to get their skins from the movies. That'd be sick. Iron Man ulting, dropping a nuke. I wonder if that's like Diva's ult. That's gonna be dangerous, bro. Like, cause the range on the thing is crazy. Hulk smashing Loki like the movie. That's sick. Doctor Strange ulting. Luna Snow. Okay, so they're adding characters people haven't seen before, really. Got Magic, Namor, Rocket, Black Panther, Loki, Spider-Man. Man, dude, this roster is sick. Galacta. Okay, multiversal type stuff going on here. Another team appears. Dude, what is happening? Oh, I see that. Oh, man. Okay. Can't wait for this game. That's going to be so sweet. Okay, closed alpha begins in May. Awesome. All right, lot to see, lot to break down. Let's get into it.
12 sleepless hours later.
So here we get our first look at the artwork for Asgard. It's going to be the first map that we get a really good look at during the trailer, since all the gameplay takes place here. Through the breakdown, we will see more lore reveal itself as to why this Asgard is a little different than what you may be used to. We also see a massive glowing world tree in the background next to another planet, hinting that this game is going to have a huge emphasis on the multiverse as indicated by the end of the trailer. We see the Bifrost firing down on top of the castle, and we see the Bifrost bridge here as well. Towards the end of the trailer, we get a better look at what will be on the other side of that bridge. Moving on, we see our first team lineup and the weapons they'll have. First up here, we see Luna Snow's ice projectile as her arm freezes up into solid ice. We're going to break down her abilities later on in the trailer, but for now, we also see a frozen snowflake on her upper torso as well, giving a little more attention to detail towards the character's lore. She's a fairly new character in the Marvel Universe, but from what we know about Luna, she's a K-pop idol, and her first appearance as an original character was in Marvel's Future Fight in 2018. Her superpowers are the ability to generate destructive dark ice, but also light ice that has healing properties, which is what we're going to see her use later on. Next, we get a good look at Loki's scepter with a unique design and the orb in the center of it where the projectiles are going to be shooting out of. I wonder if we'll get the MCU costume, which will change the look of the scepter to be more in line with the Chitauri scepter eventually, but there's so many versions of Loki, they could go any direction with his weapon, which would be really cool. After Loki, we see Magik's Soul Sword, which looks really good, and I always love playing up close and personal with melee style characters, and what we're going to see later on, it looks like Magik's no different. We later see her transform into her demonic form Darkchild, and how her look and abilities accommodate that transformation, but trust me, you're not going to want to miss out on what I found out about her character later on. What more do I have to say about Groot other than he's one of the most beloved characters in Marvel after appearing in the Guardians and Avengers movies? We see his jacked forearm here, and his hand is glowing with a unique ability that we're going to see him use during some team fights later on. I predict we're going to see a lot more team-ups based on the unique teams that certain characters are a part of, but we can get into that for a later video. The Submariner himself, we see Namor's trident with what looks like a squid eye in the center of it. We do see him able to throw this trident later on as a projectile, so we aren't going to be seeing him do any kind of hand-to-hand combat as of yet. Lastly, we finally see fan favorite Rocket Raccoon and his plasma rifle, which we see later on looks to be hit scan, and because he's a support character, he can also heal teammates with his secondary firing mode. During his team up activation with Groot, we're going to see him use his jetpack in action and the ability to scale up walls to get to the battle quicker. And finally, we get to see our first lineup of characters ready to face up against the others. I love the designs, I love the color, how vibrant everything is. It's easy to distinguish which character is which, and it's awesome to see that they took all the designs in a unique direction. Now we get our first look at the Sorcerer Supreme himself, Doctor Strange, opening a portal, which seems to be one of his unique abilities to help close the distance between spawn points and the objective or between team fights. Later, we're also going to see him use his Eye of Agamotto ultimate, which I think is going to be one of the best looking in the game. If we take a quick look at the portal before the rest of the heroes jump through, we see what appears to be a throne room, which could potentially be one team's spawn point. I imagine that we could see the Warriors 3 pop up as potential characters, and we're definitely going to get Thor at some point post-launch. Finally, the other 5 heroes make their appearance. From left to right, we have Spider-Man swinging in, Penny Parker, Iron Man, the King of Wakanda, Black Panther, notable with the gold accents, giving both T'Chaka and Killmonger vibes from the movies, but I think it's safe to assume that this will be T'Challa. And finally, Bruce Banner with his pistol, similar to what Diva would have if she wasn't in her mech suit. Here we get more close-ups of the heroes. I'm loving how the colors are giving a very classic animated look to Spider-Man. I do hope that if there are microtransactions, and odds are there will be, that we get some really awesome cosmetics. Aside from getting alternate Spider-Man like Ben Reilly or Miles Morales as potential future characters, imagine playing as Tobey Maguire's symbiote suit or maybe even Insomniac's Spider-Man. The possibilities could literally be endless. Now, one of my favorite characters in all of Marvel, we have a very sharp and sleek looking Black Panther, and with gold accents, as I mentioned earlier, with his glowing purple eyes. I noticed around his neck you see what looks similar to the Panther teeth necklace that T'Challa has in the comics on his suit, but also how Killmonger's suit had from the MCU, and in particular, Killmonger's suit from the animated What If series. Many people may recognize Penny Parker from the Spider-Verse movies, in which she had a more round-shaped mech similar to Overwatch's Diva, but in this close-up, the mech suit looks similar to what an Iron Spider suit may look like. We also see the glowing spider symbol on the back of the suit, and we'll see more of her spider arms in action in a later shot during the trailer. They'll give a better look at the full suit. Here we only get to see Iron Man's repulsor, which lets us know that will be one of his primary abilities. One thing I did notice in this shot was the design team is putting a lot of attention to detail towards the aesthetic of the game, like these drawing lines around the characters, for example, making it cartoonish and comic-like, which allows the characters to stand out uniquely in the space around them. Now in the splash panel shot, we get a better look at Iron Man's armor with the triangle arc reactor, reminiscent of what the MCU used after Iron Man 2. We also get a little more detail of Penny Parker's suit with the shoulder appendages, and also Rocket looks like a straight menace with those red eyes. One thing I wanted to point out here was that we see Penny Parker use her web ability to traverse, which makes sense considering she's part of the Spider family, but the implications for this are pretty big considering she's a tank and who can move quickly now. So there's a couple things to break down in this shot. We also see her running up a wall, which again makes sense, it's in line with her character. But what I find to be interesting is that since she's a tank, her being able to traverse quickly like that will be super useful to help get to the front line. And as we see later on, her spider arms come out as part of a path clearing attack. So she'll be incredible at flanking enemies and clearing them out of the way so that the chariot can be pushed through. Right next to her, we also see Spider-Man swinging in as part of his traversal ability, which is really cool to see. And I hope the swinging isn't like, ahem. And I anticipate that the swinging may feel closer to Fortnite's Spider-Man swinging gadget rather than Insomniac's swinging, but who knows, we could be pleasantly surprised and it could be totally different and new. Now we see we're playing as Doctor Strange, and to make it easier, we're just going to go from left to right on the HUD. So starting off, we see on the left he has 6 ammo through his primary attack, 800 HP on his deployable shield as the right click ability. He has a base 600 HP as well. We're seeing him glide here, but his left shift is most likely to give him a big lift into the air to dodge enemies or to start the glide from point to point after lift off. F is to teleport himself and others, and I'm interested to see what distance you'll be able to go with it, and will there be a visual indicator or a set distance. Finally, his Eye of Agamotto ultimate is loading up, which stuns enemies in an AoE or area of effect. We see later in the trailer that the ultimate is represented visually similar to MCU's Doctor Strange when the characters' souls are pushed out of their bodies. And lastly, we see Black Panther on Doctor Strange's left and Bruce Banner on his right, running up the path towards the objective. So what I'm seeing here is that we have health pickups very similar to Overwatch. Now, we don't know how much it heals, but I imagine they're going to be big and small heal pickups throughout the map. Before we focus on Bruce, I do want to point out Loki at the top right, firing his projectile at Doctor Strange, where we see his carry shield at work, blocking that attack. Now, like before, starting from left to right, we see Bruce's primary pistol similar to Diva when she's not in her mech suit. He has 200 base health, which seems pretty low compared to DPS support players, which makes sense since I don't imagine most people will want to play as Bruce when the primary goal is to play as a whole. Next, we see his left shift ability is a grenade icon, which indicates that it's some sort of explosive, something to like back people away from him and do damage. And then finally, his transformation fully charged up, ready to go as his ultimate. Here's just a close-up mid-transformation, and we get a better look at the grenade on his belt, also a better view of the projectile Loki's firing at Doctor Strange, and in the distance on the far left, there's Namor also visible. From what we're seeing of the map so far, I'm really glad it's colorful and vibrant, and it makes all the characters easily distinguishable. Moving on, we actually get to see Hulk now get unlimited ammo on his primary melee, which makes sense. A massive boost to his health from 200 to 900 HP. His C ability is the Gamma Infused Ally buff, which we see him do with Iron Man here in a second. And his right click is a Thunderclap, which I imagine would work similar to Reinhardt's ult, of knocking down all opponents in front of him with his hammer. But for Hulk, it probably is more of a one-on-one type of attack, since we haven't seen him use it with a massive group yet, or what that could do. Now, the E ability seems interesting because it looks like an icon that allows Hulk to transform back into Bruce if he ever needs to. And then finally, his Hulk Smash ultimate we see later on gives Hulk a massive health boost to like 1550 HP and a massive close quarters damage buff. We don't actually get to see the left shifty button, but I imagine it is probably a shield icon based on the way it looks. In front of him, we see a visual indicator showing where Hulk can leap to, which is his movement ability. And we also see Doctor Strange moving up with his carry shield still. One thing I was taking note of in this frame is how much damage Hulk is taking based on the projectile fired at him by Loki. Right here, he's getting hit with splash damage, so it's not a direct hit and it's minus 25 HP. Then from a direct hit, he's hit with an additional 50 damage. We're also seeing the arrow indicator for the leap start to get a higher ceiling, and in the distance, Namor looks like he's inside of a bubble of water in the air, which we can deduce is one of his abilities as well. Also, one thing to note, we also see a meter next to Hulk, which shows how far and how high I assume the leap can go, which is nice. Here the meter appears fully maxed out, indicating it's the peak of Hulk's leap ability. Hulk also takes an additional minus 27 HP from Loki's bad aim and the splash damage. And now we also get a glimpse of Namor's ability a little more clearly in the air. It looks to be a protective shield of sorts from potential projectiles. We'll have to wait and see how that works. Also take note, Doctor Strange is still tanking with his shield up there, absorbing a green blast from Groot. So now we're finally in the air, ready to body slam Namor, but there are a few things to note here in the background. We have 2 heal pickups, which is nice because either team can get back in the fight pretty quickly if there's no support around. And second, Rocket's on the statue firing off his weapon, which seems to be fully automatic. From what we know, it is hit scan as well. On Namor, we see his winged feet as well, which is key to his character. And third, Hulk's leap doesn't seem to have a visual indicator of a cooldown, so it'll be interesting if it can be spammed like Winston's leap as well. This is more of a nitpicky thing than anything else, but the leap and slam doesn't have an animation yet, which just looks a little off. Granted, this is alpha footage, so not everything is polished, which totally makes sense, but it would definitely be cool to see Hulk grab someone midair with his fist and slam him down. It's just more visually appealing and makes sense because it's the Hulk. After the slam, we see Namor's health take a decent amount of damage, maybe 15 to 20 ticks off of his HP. We don't know yet exactly how much damage Hulk's primary is doing or the slam, or rather I haven't found it anywhere where it said, so if anyone knows, comment them down below or what you think makes sense for the Hulk to have. And then boom, we see the right click thunderclap to finish off Namor. And we see there's an 8-second cooldown on the thunderclap, which seems reasonable. I think most of the other characters have an 8-second cooldown on their unique abilities as well. But we'll just have to wait and see what it can fully do if there's more enemies around him. Then of note, Hulk uses his Gamma Infuse ability to activate the team up with Iron Man. From what I've seen, I think the team ups can't just be activated with anyone, and there are certain pairs that it'll only work with. For example, we could see in the future Captain America and Thor's hammer and shield combo, or Thor shooting lightning into Iron Man's back to give him a charge attack. Also, we see Rocket is just posted up firing away still. Now we finally get Iron Man, and here we see the team up activation screen, which is super clean. Going left to right on Iron Man's HUD, we start to see that his primary is a repulsor projectile blast with his left click. The right click is a chest laser that has 100 ammo, or I think the ammo might be shared between the two, I'm not quite sure. I imagine the laser blast would consume more ammo, but we'll just have to see if that's the case. In the background, we see Luna Snow and Groot coming up to the battle, and from the previous frame with Doctor Strange's shield taking damage from that green blast, it makes sense now that it is Groot and it is one of his abilities. Here Here we see more of Tony's ability, starting with the left shift being flight mode, which is what we saw earlier from the first Doctor Strange clip. Now how fast or how long he can use the ability will be interesting to see, because if you can fly around firing off blasts as much as you want, that'd be really fun, but also get really abusive really quickly. Next, we see that his E is the team up button with Hulk, which activates his alternate firing mode. As you see, his left and right click have changed firing modes and now have unlimited ammo for a duration. Next to that, his rocket pod missile, which fires off and explodes on impact, is similar to Pharah's concussive blast, but seems slightly more damage than hers, but it doesn't have a concussive effect. And lastly, his ultimate, which we'll see later, is a large AoE nuke that deals a ton of damage if you're near it. Also to note, we're seeing what Iron Man's right click ability looks like post Gamma Infusion from the Hulk team up, which destroyed the statue and absolutely beams Rocket out of the air as he was trying to get fancy with his jetpack. Also below, we see the orange arrows looking shots. Those are Doctor Strange's primaries going off, and it looks to be clumped together as a burst instead of like individual firing. Maybe it does have a single fire mode, but when it's fully charged up, it unleashes all the projectiles at once, similar to that of Zenyatta. We're seeing here Iron Man's hand cannons are still in a different mode because of the gamma infused state he's in, and the rocket pod has a radius of damage, but it doesn't appear to have a concussive effect like I said earlier. I'd say right here it shows maybe 15 to 25 damage since it's doing splash damage. We also see Groot's wall ability, which can provide cover and block attackers from pressing forward. Finally, another projectile ability, as we've seen with some other characters. Something interesting is that we see Spider-Man's massive web strike attack, which is one of his special abilities, and a better view of Doctor Strange's projectiles as well. In terms of the map, we see the gate where it looks like Iron Man's team is trying to get to as well. There doesn't seem to be a chariot, so maybe I'm thinking this is a point capture game mode. Here we see Doctor Strange's teleport in action finally, with both Penny Parker in the front and the viewer as Spider-Man. In the background we get the Asgardian skyline, which looks great. Above Doc's portal we see a visual marker to let teammates know, hey, there's a portal up, everyone come through here. Now to Spider-Man, we see he has unlimited ammo on his melee, 300 HP, which is pretty solid because he's a DPS. Going on to his special abilities with the right click, I believe that is his web shooter. As we see on the HUD, he has 5 of these shots. Next, his left shift is his traversal web swinging, as we saw earlier in the trailer. And that seems to have 3 uses, and I'm sure there's a cooldown. E is his power web strike that we saw in the last clip during the Iron Man sequence. His F ability is his uppercut ability, which we'll see later on, and he has 2 uses of that. And lastly, his massive spiderweb AoE ultimate that sticks and stuns opponents who are caught in the area. Once we jump through the portal, we see Spider-Man hitting his iconic jump pose as he falls down, and notice on the ground we see a white outline, which is sort of what I was talking about earlier with the capture the point style game mode, so it seems that's what's happening here. On the enemy team, there's Loki, Groot, Magik, Rocket, all within range of Spidey's ultimate. As soon as he hits the ground, we see Spider-Man pop his ult and gain an additional 250 HP as he starts to glow blue, and his ultimate is firing off, so all the opponents in the range immediately start taking damage. The ult takes out Rocket pretty quickly, but some of the higher HP characters are still standing, but not for much longer it seems. We also see off to the left of the screen Penny Parker's projectile blast that takes down the pillar. Upon further review, it seems that the more time Spider-Man's ult hits an opponent, the more damage it seems to do, or at least stun them long enough to be taken down. It reminds me similar to that of Reaper in that he has a massive AoE style charge up attack. The longer it goes off, the more powerful it becomes. Something else interesting is that if you look at the back of the room on the painting, we have what looks to be maybe Odin slaying Surtur. It's hard to tell exactly who that is. Maybe it's Thor, I'm not totally sure. On the right we have the Midgard Serpent or World Serpent. So upon closer inspection, we start to get more lore about what's happening to this Asgard, or rather what version of Asgard this may be. We see Loki's banners hanging from the ceiling, there's a lot of green themed items across the map, and in the center, the painting has changed. We see Loki and Surtur maybe making a deal of some sort to obtain power over Asgard. I'm just theory crafting here, so we won't know till much later. On the left panel, we see Hela's wolf Fenrir, so maybe we could see Hela appear in the future, question mark. That would be pretty cool, as she's had some cool powers and visuals in Thor Ragnarok. We also see the kill feed on the right, where Rocket, Loki, and Groot were taken out, and we called that a 3-fer. We get a better look at Luna Snow now as she's ice skating to the battle, and it seems similar to Lucio, she has also a speed buff ability, and I'll explain why I think that in a later clip we'll see of her. From left to right, we see she has 30 ammo on her primary, which looks to be healing icicles, because we see Groot's health increase as she fires it at him, and much like Anna from Overwatch, I think if you target opponents, it'll damage them. Next we see she has 250 HP, which is about standard for a support character. I'll come back to her C ability as that's part of her team up, but her right click I believe could be a charge block of ice that will do damage to opponents, as we've seen other characters do that have charge up style attacks. Her left shift seems to be an AoE healing, as both Namor and Groot's health increases, so it has like a smaller radius. I'm not sure yet what E could be, as we haven't seen her use that ability yet. And lastly, her ultimate, we'll see more of in a later clip, but from what I've seen, I believe it is a larger AoE of healing with increased duration of invulnerability, and that can be toggled to another ability, which is similar to Lucio, which is where I think the speed and healing can switch. Now regarding her C ability called Ice Energy, in this clip we see on the HUD it has a lightning bolt over it, indicating it's ready to be used for team activation. A quick detail here, we see around Luna's feet sound waves start to appear, which indicate an ability switch when she uses team activation, but also true to her character, she is a K-pop idol, so it makes sense that as a singer that would be the visual representation. We also see a countdown meter on the HUD, which would indicate that she has to be quick and careful when choosing whose damage output to buff. Alright, a lot to unpack in these scenes, but let's start with the Submariner himself, Namor. We see he receives the buff as indicated by the ice shards floating near his body. We see he has unlimited ammo on his throwable tridents, which have a delay between shots. We see that 2 out of the 3 of his octopus turrets are deployed to form a line of defense in front of him. Also looking at Black Panther, we see that his outfit starts to glow purple because of his low health. We'll dive a little deeper into that once we get to him, but keep an eye out on that. We see Iron Man's non-gamma infused chest beam that we mentioned earlier during his section, and now all 3 of Namor's turrets are up as well and are on what looks to be an 8-second cooldown as his E ability. His right click seems to be a more powerful version of his trident throw, which does more damage but seems to have a higher wind-up time and a 6-second cooldown, so we'll have to see how that works. Next, his left shift ability, I believe, is what we saw earlier right before Hulk slammed him on the ground. It's a brief personal protective shield, which may be his ability to use his winged feet to fly up and out of harm's way, potentially, or to use it on the ground too. Also, this is the first time we're seeing of the team activation cooldown on C. We haven't seen his Q yet, so there's nothing to go on. In the background, we see the chariot or movable objective. I assume this game mode is very similar to many other types of game modes we've seen in Overwatch and other games, where one team pushes the objective to a certain point and the other team has to stop them. Now onto the God of Mischief, and whose map this is lore-wise, Loki. He has super unique abilities. First we see that he has 10 ammo in his single fire splash damage primary, as we saw earlier when he was shooting at Doctor Strange and Hulk. Next we see a secondary health bar with 250 HP alongside his main HP of 250, and I believe that is because the extra bar is tied to his E ability, which is to produce an illusion of himself that acts as a turret, and that is how much health this turret has. His right click indicates that he can go invisible to evade attacks or to reposition himself. Left shift seems to be a heal ability, which I imagine would be used through the scepter. F is shown here where he can swap places with his E turret, so there's a lot of room for deception and maneuverability as Loki and to get out of tight spaces. Loki's Q is probably one of the coolest in the game, as this is where he can transform into another character and have their abilities. Here we see a few things. One is that Loki, as he's about to use his ability, can't go invisible, so there's no canceling of the ability or the ability to heal if he ever needs to. And the other thing is that there's a 10-second cooldown on the turret and a 15-second cooldown on the swap. Curious as to whether he can swap with anyone or just teammates or just the turret, because that would be a huge plus for Loki players if it is more than just the turret. Because imagine you have a teammate who's injured, can't get out of a bad spot, and you swap with them, maybe go invisible, throw out an illusionary turret or ult. There's a lot of play lines with Loki, I think. Also, we see again, like in the Namor scene, Black Panther is glowing purple because he's already at low health. We finally see the transformation into the enemy Black Panther here, and very clearly on the right side HUD, we see that you only get 15 seconds in this state, so being efficient and careful is going to be a must if you play as Loki. We see you start at 0 ult charge, which makes sense, but every other ability is there and ready to be used. Black Panther is a straight melee demon, so as we saw in previous clips, if you want to play as Black Panther, just know you're going to get up close and personal for the most part. Starting with his melee claws, you have unlimited ammo, of course, typical for most melee DPS characters. You have 300 health, which is really nice. Then with his right click, we see 2 arrow charges, which are probably projectiles, as most of the characters we've seen so far have some sort of projectile ability. It would be cool though eventually to see some Dora Milaje characters in the game as well, and I predict we'll probably get a Wakanda map soon. Black Panther's left shift is his dash attack. We see in this frame where it's linear attack, very fast, high damage, and it's hard to evade. It has a 12-second cooldown as well, and in the next frame we see Black Panther using his Tornado Kick E ability, which has a wind-up time where it lets out a strong slashing kick just in case anyone is nearby, but then it deals a lot of damage as he tunnels through the opponents, as he does here to Spider-Man. And this has an 8-second cooldown. This could be really useful for getting out of tight spots, and you start to get swarmed, letting this ability rip will be super useful. We'll also see the chariot objective in the background being pushed by Doctor Strange. Finally, we see the Black Panther ultimate of transforming into the Panther God Bast, knocking down the bridge and halting the progress of the chariot, as well as taking out Doctor Strange, which indicates that environmental destruction isn't just for the aesthetics, but it's also a useful tool in the game. Another interesting point is that even as Bast, we see Black Panther take damage from Doctor Strange, so there isn't an invulnerability in this state. Also, Loki still has 12 seconds remaining as Black Panther. It's easy to forget that you aren't actually Black Panther, and we'll switch back to Loki, so strategy is everything here. The amount of damage you can do to the enemy team is crazy if you plan it right. Now onto another character that most people don't know about but is gaining in popularity is Magik. I think she's one of the coolest characters. I'm a sucker for the sword characters, and these types of DPS characters usually end up being high skill cap, and as we see here, she's in a 1v3 scenario including against a tank. We see she has unlimited ammo with her melee, 250 base health, which is about average for DPS, but we'll soon see there's more to her than meets the eye regarding that. Her right click we don't see her use in game, but just based on the icon, I think it could be an AoE slash or cleave kind of ability because of what we see in a character intro sequence later on, and I'll point that out when we get there. Right here we see her use her E ability, a dash into an uppercut slash, which seems to take out Penny Parker pretty quickly. And if you take a look at her HP bar, her base health went up by 14 HP. So I'm thinking here that the Soul Sword adds to Magik's health whatever amount of damage was dealt out, and as we'll see, her health starts to scale really fast. So if what I'm predicting is correct, she's going to be really strong off jump. We also see she has an 8-second cooldown on the dash and slash attack, which seems standard across special abilities. We also get to see Spider-Man's other ability, which was the uppercut here, and I imagine if you land it, you're doing big damage, but also the way it's used here, he evades Magik's dash, which is also really smart. And now we get to see the Dark Child transformation, which lasts for 12 seconds, as we see on the right side of the HUD. And as we go through these frames, I'm going to calculate the fluctuations in her HP, which could tell us how much damage she's dealing and receiving, and the health she's gaining at the same time. In this frame, we see she went down from 274 to 257 from an attack by Black Panther, so she took 16 damage. In retaliation, her health jumps up to 308, meaning she did 50 damage across Black Panther and Spider-Man, as we see both of their health bars indicate damage received. We see here again, Black Panther's health is less than 50%, so he gets a damage buff as his suit starts to glow purple. Magik uses the left shift teleport, which seems to be instant and gives her an invulnerability during that time. It has a 3-second delay before she can use her second charge. One thing we do see is the weapon icon change to the slash, but now also her right icon is different as well. I'm not entirely sure about this, but when coming out of a teleport, I wonder if she automatically triggers a wide slash just in case you were to teleport into a group of enemies. If you have thoughts on that, comment them down below or what you think it could be, because we'll see here in the next frame, as soon as she comes out of this teleport, she immediately slashes Black Panther and Spider-Man. So the slash here out of the portal does an additional 28 damage, making her current health jump to 336 in this frame. And then finally we see her take out Spider-Man and Black Panther, dishing out an additional 38 damage, rounding out her total health to 374. With 8 seconds to spare as Dark Child, keep in mind we saw her health increase before her ult transformation, so the values are likely different due to damage output. But if this is how her character is in its current form, then she's easily S tier in the right hands. Here we have fan favorite Rocket Raccoon scaling up a wall with the assistance of his jetpack, indicated by the fire shooting out of the bottom of it. In this frame we get a clear view of all of his ability icons, and starting from the left we see he has 45 rounds of ammo in his primary. The right click seems to be a healing shot that when the gun is charged up, it has an AoE similar to Baptiste. He has 250 health, normal for support. Then we also see the same lightning icon over the team activation that we saw with Luna Snow and Namor. This seems to be an indicator to let players know which characters are allowed to have the team up activation. Left shift seems to be 2 uses of the jetpack to gain height really quickly and traverse, and E I think could be a hover mode like we saw in the Iron Man sequence where he lasers Rocket out of the sky. We don't see his ultimate, but my prediction is that it probably transforms his primary into a massive cannon or one with multiple barrels that can either heal or deal lots of damage. I'm just going off the fact that Rocket loves his guns, so that's where I think it could go. We finally get a close-up of the team activation with Rocket riding Groot, and Groot using his limbs to strike across a long distance. We also see Penny Parker firing a blast off back towards Groot and Rocket. I had to freeze it right here because I noticed that we see Groot actually throwing what seems to be a poison gas type projectile at the group of enemies that we also saw him use earlier in the trailer. Now whether or not it's actually poison or gas, we'll have to see later, but in the next frame we'll see how the cloud or the effect starts to linger around the enemies. And here's the impact of the supposed gas cloud, and it looks like it sort of lingers in the back as well. But we also notice these green balls ricochet around Rocket and Groot, and this could be part of Groot's AoE or passive effect of the projectiles. Lastly, we see a fallen Loki statue with more environmental destruction, but also giving us more evidence that this is a twisted multiversal version of Asgard. And we also see a glowing gold orb in front of Groot and Rocket, which could either be a healing orb of some kind, or maybe even a temporary damage buff through Groot for getting a critical hit, as it says on the right side of the HUD. I did want to freeze it right here just because we see Groot's projectiles again. We see those other green gas balls or projectiles or whatever they may be. We see the big team fight happening and Iron Man's about to unleash his nuke on them. We finally get to see Iron Man's ult in action, and it's hard to tell how much damage is being done here, but we can guesstimate what it could be because we see that Groot is instantly wiped out as he's directly in the middle of the blast. And with Groot being a tank, he has 900 HP based on a frame from later in the trailer that I'll get to, but I predict that Iron Man's nuke is about 1000 damage. Penny Parker looks awesome here with the mech and the spider arms. She has shoulder mounted cannons with unlimited ammo on left click, which we have seen in previous clips, and on the right click it looks like she has 7 spider mines potentially, or drones of some kind. She does have an insane 950 health right here, but that could be due to a health buff as the additional HP on the bar is blue, and it could be part of an ability of hers we just don't know of yet. We don't know much about her other abilities except for those charged up laser beams and her web swing and traversal ability, which I think is left shift from previous clips, but here we see her ultimate and she has about a 12-second dash where she uses her spider arms to knock back opponents and leave behind a glowing electrified mesh field in her footsteps. Here we get the iconic scene from the MCU of Hulk flinging Loki back and forth from the first Avengers film, but in game it's Hulk's ultimate Hulk smash ability where he has a crazy 1550 HP and continues to smash for about 12 seconds. We're back to Doctor Strange, and we kind of covered his abilities in the beginning of the breakdown. So right here, we're just going to look at his ultimate, the Eye of Agamotto, and we see that all the enemies within the radius are affected and they get their souls kicked out of them, much like the MCU's Doctor Strange, which is very visually appealing and awesome to see. We also don't know how long the stun lasts for or if the enemies can get kicked out of it, so it'll be interesting to see exactly how his ultimate works. We catch up again with Luna Snow here, and this is where I said she has similar abilities to Lucio. I think because we see in the middle of the screen she has a Q toggle for her ult, so either she can give health to whoever's in her AoE or switch to a speed buff for the team. We also see on the bottom right Groot's health icon, and this is where I found out that he has 900 HP, which is how I theorized what Iron Man's ult damage could most likely be. If you recall from earlier, I said I think one of Magik's abilities is in the character intro card, and I believe that right-click slash ability is most likely this, as it is doing the exact thing that the icon shows, and it was the last ability that we have yet to see from her. Then as the trailer starts to wrap up, we see all the rest of the characters in these intro screens, and then we finally get the Bifrost, or the final shot of the first team lineup we saw at the beginning of the trailer with the Bifrost in the background. Also to note, we see other planets as well, which leads us to our next big reveal. We get our first look at Galacta, not female Galactus, but she's the daughter of Galactus and looks to be in charge of these multiversal battles, as we'll see a new team enter the fight in a moment. How she fits into the larger narrative will be interesting to see, because according to Marvel Rivals website, the game leads players into a thrilling narrative where the tyrannical Doctor Doom clashes with his future self from the year 2099, and this cataclysmic event known as a time stream entanglement sets the stage for a multiversal showdown where heroes and villains must unite or clash to prevent reality from falling under Doom's control. So it looks like there's larger forces at play here as well that we haven't seen yet, but I'm sure we'll get a glimpse of that in future trailers. Also, maybe I've been staring at this for too long, but does that look like Kang the Conqueror right there? Here we see Tokyo 2099, and we can clearly see the spiderweb indications on the train, giving us a big hint on who could be coming to the game soon. For me, this is probably the most exciting part of the whole trailer, because we finally get to meet new characters outside of the main roster we've seen so far. And from left to right, we got Storm and Magneto from the X-Men, Star-Lord and Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy, the Punisher, and then Scarlet Witch. A badass lineup, and I can't wait to see what kind of team activations happen with these characters and future characters as well. I can already see Star-Lord and Mantis having activations with Groot or Rocket potentially, Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange or Loki, Storm and Black Panther as they're married in the comics, so I could definitely see that. Spider-Man and Punisher would also be sick. Also from online sources, I've seen Magneto be able to generate magnetic shield as he's a tank, so he'll be a front line of defense to protect his team from projectiles, and the Punisher will also be able to place down gun turrets similar to that of Torbjorn. Here is where I was able to see the big hint for an upcoming character, but also from my reaction, if you look at the bottom right, that person in color scheme looks oddly familiar. We also see the Alchemax building in the center right there, just spoon feeding you the Easter egg. Finally, we reach the end of the trailer. Remember, these are all just my observations and theories that are subject to change as more information comes out, obviously. Or if there's something I missed entirely, feel free to comment that down below and let me know. This video is already pretty long, so I appreciate it if you stuck around this long. But here's my wish list of characters I want to see in the future of the game. Comment down below which characters you're looking forward to using the most and which characters are on your wish list. There's literally thousands of characters, but mine are Taskmaster, Ghost Rider, Quicksilver, Cyclops, Doctor Doom, obviously he's going to be in the game soon, Venom, Thor, Captain America, Daredevil, and Wolverine.